When Lauren dropped her bombshell, I was sitting at the kitchen table, spinning a fork in my half-eaten plate of spaghetti. It wasn't one of those loud, fiery fights people talk about. It was almost surgical, cold, clean, and final. She adjusted the strap of her designer purse, avoided eye contact, and said, "This marriage is dead. I'm moving on." No yelling, no pleading, not even a sigh. I stabbed the last forkful of pasta, chewed slowly, wiped my mouth, and looked her straight in the eye. "Works for me," I said, with a shrug so casual it might have been about the weather. Lauren blinked like she didn't hear me right. I guess she expected me to fall apart to throw some last-minute promises at her feet. Instead, I pushed the chair back, stood up, and calmly asked if she needed help packing. She didn't answer, just stormed out like the house was on fire. What she didn't realize was, she wasn't breaking me. She was setting me free. Within a week, I found a new place, a cozy, sunlit apartment across town with brick walls, a rooftop view, and a peace I hadn't felt in years. And I wasn't sitting around licking my wounds either. While Lauren was out celebrating her freedom, I started building a new life, a better one, piece by piece. But life, as it turns out, has a savage sense of humor. Exactly 1 month later, Lauren showed up at my new front door, uninvited. And when she peeked inside and saw who was sitting across from me at the dinner table, she went ghost white. She wasn't ready for what she saw. And to be honest, neither were you. The knock was soft at first, like maybe whoever was standing there wasn't sure they had the courage to follow through. I had been laughing at something Samantha said. A deep, real laugh. The kind that had been missing from my life for longer than I cared to admit. When the sound interrupted us, I wiped my hands on her napkin and walked to the door, expecting maybe a neighbor or a delivery mistake. Instead, there she was, Lauren. She looked different. Not in the way that people glow when they found happiness. No. She looked worn, frazzled, like the world she thought she was racing toward had chewed her up and spat her back out. Her perfectly ironed shirt was wrinkled. Her makeup was smudged around the eyes, and there was a desperate flicker in her expression she couldn't quite hide. I opened the door but didn't say anything. I didn't need to. Lauren's eyes slid past me, scanning the apartment she hadn't been invited to. And then they locked onto the dinner table where Samantha sat, smiling, casually sipping a glass of wine. It wasn't just any woman. Samantha was Lauren's ex-best friend. The friend she had ghosted months ago when she outgrew all of her old life, including me. The color drained from Lauren's face so quickly I thought she might faint right there on the doormat. I didn't rush to help. I just leaned casually against the doorframe, arms crossed, watching the scene unfold like it was a matinee performance I had already bought popcorn for. Samantha gave a little wave from her seat, the smile never leaving her face. "You're not serious," Lawrence stammered, voice barely a whisper. I tilted my head slightly. "Why not? You said you were done. You were crystal clear, remember?" Lauren opened her mouth like she had something earth-shattering to say, some magical phrase that would rewind the clock and erase the choices she had made. But nothing came out, just a soft, pathetic breath. Behind me, Samantha stood up and walked over, placing a hand lightly on my shoulder. It wasn't possessive or dramatic, it was just comfortable. The way two people who genuinely liked each other moved. Lauren's jaw twitched. Her hands balled into tight fists. "You're a bastard," she hissed. I smiled again, that same calm, unbothered smile I had given her the night she left. Maybe, but at least I'm not a quitter. I closed the door in her stunned face without another word. No drama, no shouting, no regret. I turned back to Samantha, who was already laughing under her breath. Think she'll come back? She asked, raising an eyebrow. I shrugged, picking up my wine glass. Doesn't matter if she does, because for the first time in a long time, I wasn't waiting around to be someone's second choice. Not anymore. The days that followed that night were nothing short of strange. It was like Lauren had been ripped out of her fantasy world and dumped back into reality without a safety net. She called, she texted, she even showed up once more, leaving a half-hearted apology note tucked into my mailbox. I never responded. It wasn't cruelty, it was clarity. I had given her everything, time, loyalty, my entire heart, and she had tossed it aside like it was last season's fashion. Now she was realizing that freedom without substance is just a different kind of prison. Meanwhile, my life was unfolding in ways I hadn't imagined, even a few months earlier. Samantha turned out to be more than just a dinner guest. We had known each other for years, but life and loyalty to Lauren had kept us at a polite distance. Now that the old ties were cut, something real began to form between us, something easy, like it had been waiting beneath the surface all along. We weren't rushing into anything messy. It wasn't about revenge. It was about finding peace where once there had only been walking on eggshells. I remember one Saturday afternoon we were setting up a small barbecue on my new rooftop. The air smelled of grilled chicken and fresh-cut herbs, the city buzzing beneath us like a living thing. Samantha was laughing at some ridiculous story I was telling. Real laughter, not the forced kind that had filled my home with Lauren when I spotted a figure across the street half hiding behind a lamppost. Lauren watching, I didn't acknowledge her, didn't wave, didn't even flinch. I turned back to Samantha, handed her a plate, and kept on living my life. Later that night, when I checked my phone, there were more messages from Lauren. Can we talk? Can we fix this? I made a mistake. A mistake. That's what she called it, as if dismantling a marriage, trading loyalty for temporary excitement, and throwing away years of shared memories could be bundled up into 2 words and sealed shut. I didn't reply. There was nothing left to say. Instead, I sat back, watched the city lights blink in the distance, and let the silence answer for me, because some bridges aren't meant to be rebuilt. Some fires are meant to burn until there's nothing left but ashes, and I was ready finally to build something new on my own terms. Weeks passed, each one stretched out smoother than the last, like some invisible weight had finally rolled off my chest. Samantha and I fell into a rhythm that didn't feel forced or complicated. 2 people who just fit without the need for endless talks about working on things or pretending to be happy for the sake of appearances. It was strange at first, feeling light after years of heavy. I realized how much of myself I had shrunk to fit into Lauren's shrinking world. Now, every day felt like I was reclaiming pieces of myself I hadn't even known I'd lost. I had almost forgotten the mess Lauren left behind. Almost. Until the day she stormed back into my life like a hurricane, refusing to die quietly. It was a Friday evening, just after sunset. Samantha and I were making plans for a weekend getaway somewhere by the coast when my doorbell rang 3 times, fast, angry, urgent. I knew even before I opened it. There was a certain kind of chaos that only Lauren could summon into a room. I swung the door open to find her standing there, drenched from the unexpected rain. Mascara trailing down her cheeks like war paint. Her once manicured hands were clutching a stack of papers. Divorce papers, I thought at first. But no, something worse. "You need to help me," she blurted out without greeting. I leaned against the door frame, arms crossed, heart steady. "Why would I do that?" Her voice cracked. I made a mistake. I almost laughed. She had no idea how many times I had rehearsed hearing those words. Back when it would have mattered. Back when I would have sold my soul for a sliver of remorse from her. But now, Now they landed with all the impact of a dry leaf hitting the pavement. She shoved the papers into my chest. Out of instinct, I caught them. I glanced down. Legal notices, debt collectors, eviction threats. Turns out the man she had left me for, a so-called successful entrepreneur, was neither successful nor entrepreneurial. He had taken her for everything. Her savings, her credit, even the car she had proudly driven away in the night she walked out of our marriage. "He used me," she whispered, voice thick with desperation. "He took everything and disappeared." I handed the papers back without a shred of sympathy. "Sounds like you two had a lot in common." She flinched like I had slapped her. "Please, Damon, I have nowhere to go." There it was. The real reason she was standing on my doorstep, dripping rainwater onto my new floors. Not love, not regret, just survival. She didn't miss me. She missed the safety, the comfort, the steady life she had traded away for cheap thrills. Behind me, Samantha appeared in the hallway, wrapped in a soft sweater, hair still damp from a shower. She didn't say anything. She didn't need to. Her presence alone was enough, a reminder of everything I had rebuilt without Lauren, everything I refused to sacrifice again. I straightened up, towering over the broken woman in front of me. "You didn't just leave me, Lauren. You burned every bridge on your way out. I'm not your safety net." Her lower lip trembled. She looked past me again at Samantha, and for a moment, I saw pure hatred flash in her eyes, as if all of her bad choices were somehow Samantha's fault, not her own. I stepped aside slightly, making it clear she wasn't welcome. "Good luck, Lauren." And then I closed the door, this time for good. After that night, the atmosphere around me shifted permanently. It wasn't just Lauren's desperate attempt to claw her way back into my life that changed things. It was how final it all felt. How irreversible the break between us truly was. I wasn't just walking away from a marriage that had ended months ago. I was burying it without ceremony, without guilt. Strangely enough, the closure didn't come with tears or dramatic declarations. It came with a kind of brutal peace. The kind you only feel when you finally accept that some battles aren't meant to be won. They're meant to be left behind. But Lauren wasn't done yet. She must have realized that she no longer had any emotional power over me, because over the next few weeks, she tried to light every match she could find. First, the mutual friends. Those who had always lingered in the background, pretending neutrality while secretly picking sides. I started getting calls, texts, even social media attacks. Some subtle, others downright shameless. "You two were so good together," they'd write. "People make mistakes," they said, trying to stitch together a narrative where Lauren was the misunderstood victim and I was the cruel one for moving on. I ignored every message, every call, every weak attempt to pull me back into a story I no longer wanted to be part of. When that didn't work, she got bolder. One afternoon, Samantha and I were out at a small, quiet farmer's market. The kind of peaceful, ordinary outing that I had never been able to enjoy with Lauren because she always needed something bigger, flashier, more dramatic. We were standing in line for fresh lemonade when I spotted Lauren across the street. She was leaning against a lamppost, pretending to scroll through her phone but failing miserably to look casual. She wasn't there by accident. She was there to be seen, to remind me that she still existed, that she was still lurking at the edges of my new life. Samantha noticed her too. She squeezed my hand gently, a silent question. "Do you want to leave?" I smiled, kissed the back of her hand, and turned my back to Lauren. We stayed. We bought lemonade, We sampled pastries. We lived. Later that evening, Samantha said something that stuck with me. We were sitting on the balcony, legs tangled together, the city humming quietly beneath us. "You can't heal," she said, "if you keep opening the door to the infection." Simple, sharp, true. I realized then that Lauren wasn't the wound anymore. She was the infection, the lingering poison that could only survive if I let it fester. And I had no intention of letting it back in. The next day I blocked her number, unfriended the mutual friends, deleted every old email, every photo, every forgotten memory she might someday use to claw her way back. I scrubbed her from my life the way you would clean a house after a flood. Thoroughly, ruthlessly, without a second glance at what was lost. And for the first time in what felt like forever, I wasn't carrying her ghost anymore. I was free. Not the kind of freedom that's loud or reckless, the kind that's quiet, solid, unshakable. And Lauren? She was just a memory when I didn't need to revisit ever again. Or so I thought. It was around early November when the past decided to throw one final punch. I had just finished setting up the rooftop for a small Thanksgiving gathering. Nothing fancy, just a few close friends, some wine, and the kind of laughter that warms you better than any fireplace. Samantha was busy lighting candles, humming a song under her breath, her presence filling the space with a comfort I hadn't known I craved until I had it. Life had fallen into a rhythm so steady, so right that I almost forgot how much chaos I had once considered normal. Then came the envelope. It arrived without a return address, tucked neatly into my mailbox between some boring utility bills and a flyer for a new gym. I almost tossed it out without opening it, but something about its stark white paper, the deliberate handwriting, made me pause. Inside was a wedding invitation. Lauren's wedding invitation. To say I was shocked would be an understatement. After all the dramatic pleas, the desperate attempts to worm her way back into my life, she was now marrying someone else. I read the card twice, trying to make sure I wasn't hallucinating. There it was in gold cursive letters. Her name, Lauren Marie Bishop, and underneath it, some man I had never heard of, a stranger. A sick kind of amusement bubbled up inside me. Was this her attempt at a final jab? A way to show me she had moved on first, that she had won something? Samantha peeked over my shoulder, reading the card. She chuckled and handed it back like it was a joke too lame to entertain. "You going?" she teased. I laughed for real. I'd rather watch paint dry. And that should have been the end of it. Another pathetic footnote in Lauren's long list of bad decisions. Another chapter closed. But Lauren wasn't finished. A few days later, she showed up again. This time, not at my doorstep, but at my office, my sanctuary, the one place untouched by all the drama. I was heading out for lunch when I spotted her in the lobby, nervously twisting the strap of a cheap handbag in her hands. "Damon, wait," she called out. I didn't stop. I didn't even slow down. She chased after me, heels clicking desperately on the marble floor. "Please, just give me 5 minutes." Against every bit of good sense, I turned, not out of softness, out of curiosity, the kind you feel when you see a car wreck and can't quite look away. "I wanted you to see the invitation," she said, breathless. "I wanted you to know that I'm moving on too, that I'm happy." The lie was so obvious it almost felt cruel to let her believe she was selling it. "You don't look happy," I said simply. Her face crumpled for a fraction of a second before she recovered. "He's a good man," she insisted. "Stable, safe, stable, and safe." The very thing she once said bored her to death when she described our marriage to her friends. not knowing I had overheard every brutal word. I didn't say anything more. I didn't need to. The hollow ring in her voice was louder than anything I could have thrown at her. I turned and walked away, leaving her standing there surrounded by people who didn't know her, didn't know me, didn't know the ruins she was trying to decorate with fake flowers and gold invitations. I wasn't angry. I wasn't sad. I was free. And this time, Lauren had to live with the empty space she had created all by herself. Thanksgiving evening arrived like a slow, golden tide washing over the city. The rooftop was strung with warm lights. Soft music played from a vintage speaker Samantha had found at some flea market, and the table was heavy with food that smelled like childhood memories. Friends trickled in, arms full of pies, wine bottles, and that unmistakable energy you only feel when you know you're surrounded by people who genuinely want to be there. Not out of obligation, not out of appearances, but because they choose you. I caught myself smiling more times than I could count. Real smiles, the kind that sneak up on you before you even know they're there. Samantha, radiant and easygoing in a casual blue dress, moved through the crowd like she had always belonged, chatting, laughing, handing out slices of pecan pie as if she were the official hostess. Seeing her like that, fully at home in my world, stirred something deep in me. Something steady and certain. At some point in the evening, as the stars started to pepper the sky and the city bus faded into a gentle hum below us, Samantha pulled me aside and led me toward the far end of the rooftop, where a small table for two was waiting. I hadn't even noticed it being set up. She winked and said, "You've been taking care of everyone else all night. Time someone takes care of you." As we sat down, the laughter of the others melting into the background, she reached under the table and pulled out a small box wrapped in deep green paper. No big ceremony, no attention from the others, just a quiet, intimate moment between two people who understood each other without needing to explain a thing. I opened it slowly. Inside was a leather journal, thick, rough, and beautiful, with my initials embossed on the cover. "For your next chapter," she said simply. Something shifted inside me. It wasn't just gratitude. It was something bigger. The realization that healing isn't loud and dramatic. It's quiet. It's small moments stacking up until one day you realize you're whole again. And then, just when I thought the night couldn't feel more complete, it happened. A loud, unmistakable clatter from the rooftop entrance broke the rhythm of the evening. Heads turned. Conversations halted mid-sentence, and standing there, frozen in the doorway like a ghost caught in a spotlight, was Lauren. For a beat, nobody moved. Nobody breathed. She was dressed up, overdressed, really in a sparkling cocktail dress that screamed desperation more than elegance. Her makeup was heavier than usual, almost theatrical under the rooftop lights. She clutched a sad-looking bottle of wine in one hand and a fake smile in the other. All eyes turned to me. I stood up slow and calm, feeling Samantha rise beside me without a hint of panic. I didn't have to guess why Lauren was there. I knew somewhere in the back of her unraveling mind she thought crashing this new life of mine would somehow reclaim the one she had thrown away. She thought showing up would shatter me. She couldn't have been more wrong. Without hesitation, I stepped forward, not toward her but toward Samantha. I took her hand, laced my fingers with hers, and turned back to the table without even acknowledging Lauren's existence. And that was it. No scene, no shouting, no giving her the satisfaction of seeing any reaction at all. Our friends followed suit, resuming their conversations, laughter bubbling up stronger now, brighter, as if Lauren was nothing more than a passing shadow, an unwelcome memory that had no place here anymore. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Lauren standing there, her fake smile crumbling, the bottle of wine slipping slightly in her trembling hand. She realized in that brutal, crystal-clear moment that she had truly lost. Not just me, not just the life she had so carelessly shattered. She had lost herself, and there was no invitation, no apology, no desperate crash landing that could bring her back to the world she had burned down. She lingered for a few minutes, a sad, lonely figure under the buzzing lights. Then quietly she turned and left, and just like that, she was gone for good. In the weeks that followed, the shadows that Lauren had tried to cast over my life faded into something powerless, something distant, like an old dream you can barely remember the details of when you wake up. I didn't hear from her again, not directly. Word drifted through mutual acquaintances now and then, bits and pieces about her rushed marriage falling apart, about her struggles to find stable ground. But I didn't dig deeper. I had no interest in dragging old ghosts into the home I was building. Instead, my life unfolded naturally, steadily, beautifully. Samantha and I grew closer with an ease that felt almost unreal after the battlefield my heart had been through. We didn't have to force anything. Conversations flowed, silences felt comfortable, and laughter came often, filling up the spaces that used to feel so hollow. We traveled together, small trips at first, weekend escapes to the coast, quiet towns with cobblestone streets and sleepy cafes. Then longer adventures, hiking through forest trails, sailing on calm waters, learning how to get lost and find our way back, always together. I started writing again, too. That leather journal Samantha had given me became something more than just a place for thoughts. It became a blueprint for the life I was consciously choosing to build. One of gratitude, resilience, and authenticity. I filled its pages slowly at first, tentative, like testing a muscle that had atrophied from years of neglect. But soon the words poured out, stronger, clearer. Healing wasn't an event. It was a choice I made every day. On a particularly crisp Sunday morning, as we sat on the balcony with coffee steaming in our mugs in the city just waking up around us, Samantha leaned over and said, "You know, if you ever wanted to write something real, your story, I think a lot of people would want to hear it." I looked at her, sunlight catching in her hair, and realized she wasn't talking about the pain. She was talking about the survival, the rebuilding, the proof that sometimes when life burns everything you know to the ground, it's not the end. It's the clearing you needed all along to start fresh. And that's exactly what I did. I didn't just survive losing Lauren. I didn't just survive betrayal, abandonment, loneliness. I transcended it. I built something stronger, something deeper, something real. Samantha and I eventually found a place outside the city, a small house with a garden that smelled of lilacs in the spring and wood smoke in the fall. It wasn't flashy or grand. It was honest. It was ours. We planted new roots there, literally and figuratively. And every time I sat under the old oak tree in the backyard watching her laugh with friends or dance barefoot in the grass, I knew without a doubt, sometimes the best thing that can ever happen to you is being set free from what was never meant for you. And sometimes, just sometimes, the life you build afterward, quietly, patiently, bravely, ends up being so much better than anything you left behind.